Here's what's in the news right now. Earlier this month on Groundhog Day, Apple released their Vision Pro product. Now, this $3,500 looks like a ski mask put over your eyes with a cable that comes out of that mask, allows you to augment reality. This is not virtual reality. It can become virtual reality. This Vision Pro has that capability, but it's meant for augmented reality. Welcome to the Leveraging Success Podcast. I'm your host, Jeff Gearhart. Every time that we're together, I want to help you work less, make more, and through the freedom that you gain and the margin that you start to store up, you're going to be able to use that to be an incredible husband, wife, parent, and most importantly, an incredible kingdom leader living the life mission that God put you on. I'm here today again with Rob Dayton. Rob, so glad to be with you. Here we go on another week.
Good morning, Jeff.
Man, it's Monday, and here these weeks are already flying by. Second month of the year is well underway, and I was telling Heather over the weekend, we're going to blink and it's going to be Christmas again.
It will be Christmas again. It's just crazy. Yeah. And in Santa Barbara, the storms were pretty radical last night, but we've survived. I know there's a lot of people experiencing flooding, so we're thinking about them.
Yeah. Yeah. Funny enough, I think we have exchanged weather patterns here in Texas. We are having fantastic high 60s.
That's
low
not
70s.
Fair because I pay a higher tax. It's not
You do
fair.
pay the sunshine tax.
I pay the sunshine tax, so I'm not sure what's going on here. Maybe, does this mean you owe us some change?
It wouldn't surprise me if there was a claim for that.
That's funny.
Oh, man. Hey, we want to get into it today, really around mindset, because I have something to admit, something that I've got to confess to, and this is the truth of me. And I think, Rob, it's probably the truth for many of the people that we get to talk to, and that's we are adrenaline junkies. I'm an adrenaline junkie. And what does that mean? I don't mean in the sense of something's mastered me exactly. To say that I enjoy achievement. I enjoy a goal. Say I'm going to do it. Focus hard. It puts me into a stretch. It's beyond me. Frankly, some people might look at me and think that's a little crazy, but I jumped anyway and I'm going for it. And it doesn't matter what happens. It's just that we get to that high and that achievement, and then we quickly lose that again, and we're back on to the next thing, and it's in this treadmill. And I want to examine that today because as we look at that, working towards the sweet spot of contentment, of joy, of flow, that we want to have that all in place while we continue to, but to get there, that's not something that's natural. In fact, I have found myself more often than not through much of my career spending time trying to achieve a lot of things. And then I always have a sense of it wasn't enough. That wasn't enough. I don't care what happened. Forget what you got, what you just did. Keep going. It's not enough. You're not enough. Keep going. And it's an insatiable feeling. But we want to talk about a mindset shift that we do that is a regular practice, and some of the things that you do, Rob, in regular practice towards maintaining contentment, staying in flow, in joy, not giving way to anxiety while you continue to go after the goals that you've gotten and to continue to achieve.
Yeah, it's really good. As you're talking, Jeff, I'm wondering, where is achiever on your strength finder? What number is it?
Wow. As you say that, it's not my top 5, but it has to be in top 15.
It has to be there. It has to be up there. Yeah, I would say it is too. And mine has varied a little bit. It's the lowest it's ever been in my career after taking the assessment 4 times. It's in the middle at 18. But you know, what people should know is that achiever is it's a psychological, physiological reaction. So when people have an achiever talent, and most successful people do, and it actually is one of the most common repeating strengths in the population. When you have that, then what happens is your body knows that something has to be done. You may not know what it is, but it's this feeling. And that's that adrenaline junkie that you're talking about, is there's this feeling that something has to be done. And achievers don't rest. They don't sit on a beach and have quiet time. They rest doing. Even their rest space is doing. And they commonly will have lists. And so a lot of our listeners are going to fall into this category. So it's really good we're talking about this.
Yeah. The thing that's inside of us is this drive, this desire, this wanting to get where we're hoping to go. And getting there often means that there's a good amount of strain. Now, free commercial, Rob, you and I were using these Whoop bands on our, our wrists. Yeah, exactly. And those are measuring our heart strain. And there is some sort of strain that's happening here that that is healthy to push. But I've been reading this book by Mihai Csikszentmihalyi called Flow, and what he does is to put that flow, which is the right amount of use of your skills in challenge, without putting you into a place of anxiety. So when it flips over into anxiety, it's not in flow. But when you're inside the place with which strain of a good amount of, perhaps I think the number that he gave is 4% more requirement than your current capacity, that's the right amount of stretch, then that stretch will put me into a place where the best of my skills are being used. Something that I'm not sure how it's going to work, but it's going to use some of my skills starts to appear, like innovation and new capabilities get created. And that's that that place of flow, but we want to be able to stay in that. And so we're going to get into some mindset tools and what those mindset tools look like to keep the right amount of flow, contentment, and joy while continuing to be an achiever. Here's the thing, Robin. I think that what could be deceptive about our podcast is that every time we're together, I'm saying to you, let's work less and make more. And the immediate thought to that's the high achiever is, this guy's telling me to be lazy. He's telling me to find a way to be at the bar or the beach or some golf course or something, not what I normally love to do. And the high achiever, that's kryptonite. That's not what I want to do. I want to be after it. I want to be at it. And why we love talking to you who love to achieve is that you have that in you. And if you were to focus that in a way with which it wasn't your career that was overshadowing you, or it wasn't your focus on your children overshadowing you, that if those were done in right balance, that you would have the capacity to still be in high achievement, but use the margin of time to go after a kingdom mission, a life's mission that God's called you into. And that sense of achievement could be out in front of you. So that the tools that we want to bring to you today are really in that sphere. Rob, I can't not ask you to talk a little bit about strengths. You are deep in this. You're much deeper than I am in terms of Clifton strengths. And you use that normally in your coaching and consulting at a very, very deep level. As people are looking at themselves and their strengths and evaluating the question that you and I talked a couple episodes back about, who am I? What should they be looking at when they're doing this? And how could they take the Clifton Strengths test assessment that they could get some of this data on them?
Such a good question. And I think before answering that, we need to ask, why would I want to do that? In the vein of what you're saying, which is so good, it's not just do less as a practice. It's actually do the right things, do less of the things that aren't working, do more of the things that do work for your values. For us, that's a kingdom focus. The difference in that lane is the difference between time management, which would be managing as many things, juggling as many balls as we could, versus time leadership, which is juggling the right balls and having margin for, in our case, God's availability to bring in something that he's doing that he wants you to do. And now I have the space and capacity to do that thing versus being overwhelmed. When we look at strengths, what you want to know is you want to know how you specialize. What is your natural talent? what is the thing that you naturally achieve really well? The difference in your earlier example of flow, which is such an awesome book and breakthrough in terms of study, is the difference between anxiety and excitement. If you're anxious about a thing, the chances are it's not going to be in your top strength suite. If you're on the edge of your seat, but there and you're still a lot of unknowns and you're still feeling as though, man, I don't know, will this work out? But there's an edge of excitement. That is the difference, because flow is when you no longer have to think about what you're doing. If we could position our lives to be more intuitive and less, the stress comes from thinking about how to get myself to do a thing and how to do it right. The joy comes from an expression of who we are that is so natural. The thinking comes away and the doing becomes authentic, just purely authentic. And in the strengths lane, very effective.
I want to get into the news. Every time that we're together, we like to look into the news and see what's going on in our world that can be impacting and giving input to what we're doing here and what we're talking about today, which today's focus is all about helping you to consider, how do you continue to achieve while you attain balance? How do you continue to be that adrenaline junkie while you're understanding that I'm expecting to achieve? It's just going to be in some different categories. What does that look like? Here's what's in the news right now. Earlier this month on Groundhog Day, Apple released their Vision Pro product. Now, this $3,500 looks like a ski mask put over your eyes with a cable that comes out of that mask, allows you to augment reality. This is not virtual reality. It can become virtual reality. This Vision Pro has that capability, but it's meant for augmented reality. Now, unlike other products that have come in the past that have been completely closed eye to give you a virtual reality experience, this product, which $3,500 computer essentially, is what it's there for, is to augment what and put an actual computer in front of you, of which you and your eyes and your hands move and interact with it. Now, there's been so many YouTubers that have done incredible reviews of the pluses and minuses and promises of that product. But there are a lot of people that are expecting this is another step towards the future that perhaps we saw in science fiction many years ago that has now started to appear. And Rob, I don't know if you've seen these memes and videos of people in the wild already using the Vision Pro, where they're walking and crossing a street on a busy street, and they're just up reaching, grabbing at things and looking around, and they've got these goggles on. Or the one that cracked me up was this guy that's in a Tesla Cybertruck, and he's clearly put it on self-driving mode. It's driving itself. He's got the goggles on, and this guy pulls up next to him and starts filming, and he's no hands on the wheel, got the goggles on, pinching and moving and looking around and doing everything but driving. And this is the future, right? This augmented reality. And on top of that, Elon Musk also announced here earlier that Neuralink had its first implant of a computer chip into a brain, and the scientific implications of that, the perhaps co-thinking of what can happen there if there's an AI capability. In fact, Elon said this about Neuralink. He said, this is how humans will stay ahead of AI, is by putting computer chips inside of them. Crazy new world. Rob, react to that. How do you feel about that as you see that in the news?
Excited? I think it can feel like when the iPhone came out, it changed the world. And obviously, it changed the way our kids learned, and we're learning from that, all the bad things about that. But in terms of the incredible things, the ability to communicate, which I'm in our business is I'm very fond of in the coaching realm, in my sweet spot of encouraging people. I think text was developed to give people encouragement. And I channelize that technology into my strengths and actually use that to make sure my strengths get on the table. So I'm sure as we see these new technologies coming out, it's easy to be afraid of them, and clearly people are doing some pretty wacky things
Yeah.
with them. But also, they can be used for amazing things to put your strengths on steroids and actually help you achieve more with less, is what we're saying. So the question becomes, how do you integrate those technologies into your strengths and not let them be a distraction to you, but an acceleration?
Yeah, I like that a lot, Rob, because I think what we're after is not to worry that it's going to ruin things. It certainly has the ability to. And certainly every technology that comes out, good and evil, can speed themselves. But if we're looking at this and making sure that nothing is going to master me, but me master it, and this is a key mindset for the way that we approach all of life mastery and leveraging success, is to say, I want to make sure that these tools are serving me. My money is serving me, me not serving it. My job is serving me, me not serving a job. Now, as we have that mindset, it means that I don't want anything to be in charge of me except for the Holy Spirit inside of me. I want God to be able to direct, think differently. But if I'm using those tools, then they could be tools to be mastered so that I get the outcomes that I expect and that I could truly, as you suggest, work less. And to that extent, that's a leverage point. That's an opportunity. If I'm thinking of it that way, then I'm seeing that. But if I'm just allowing for one more input into my life, one more alert, one more message that says, pay attention to me, let me direct you. And by the way, every time we treat our phones or our calendars, our email, or your Slack channels or your Twitter or any of that stuff to say what you should think, where you should go, how you should act, then you're being
So good.
directed by someone else's agenda. And so this could just be another input point for me to allow something else to direct me. But I want to make sure that those things are always mastered and they stay in their place. And if they stay in their place, they're a tool not to be afraid of, but a tool to be leveraged.
That's so good. The all these things that are coming at us, and particularly for achievers who need to check the boxes, they can be so alluring. And what I find fascinating is that the things that distract us are things that we can't control. In other words, we tend to be excited or anticipate things, information, what's going on in Washington today, what's going on in the world, which important to know and understand and have a clear understanding, but to focus on these things that you will not control, maybe someone on the call can, is not helpful. Focusing on things, when Jesus says the eye is the lamp of the body, what he's saying is that what you're perceiving becomes the light within you and guides for what you're doing. So if you're looking at something that is distracting and constantly distracting from where you're going or from where you're wired to going in terms of strengths, then that is going to be a handcuff and that is not going to set you free. So the question that I ask myself on alerts, like we get to choose on our phones, what are we alerted to? Is this alert get me to my destiny? Does this alert prompt me to look at something that is in alignment with the destiny that I feel like I'm supposed to go, or for many of us, where we feel like God wants to go? Then if it's not, then let's get rid of that alert and let's put that in the lower category of maybe need to know a context of a thing, but not a focus.
Yeah. Oh man, so good. Back to the circle of influence, circle of concern. When I'm in my circle of concern, my circle of influence is shrinking and vice versa. So my opportunity always to be on focus of the things that I have control over. Good stuff. Hey, let's get into our content here to be helping. And that the tool that we're after is to say, how can I continue to work less, make more, get balance in my life, but not lose the edge, the excitement, the achiever in me? Because if I'm taking those things on, I'm not looking to find more free time, that to just is there for waste or variable use. Because one thing about time is that it's going to be consumed and it's always being consumed. So it's got to be purposed for something. And so we're proposing to you that the leveraging of your success will give you headroom to do amazing things elsewhere. But what you want to be able to do is to have the mindset that says that the greatest strain that you're going to feel is not just in your career. The greatest achievement that you're going to feel is not just in perhaps your kids or your career, but in fact, the whole of your kingdom leadership, the whole of your life mission. So to get into that, you're going to need that achiever in you. You're going to want to have it to say, this is the goal. Here's the thing I'm setting out for. Here's the thing where, God, you're leading me to, and I'm going for it. Rob, I think the perhaps the quiet part of what we're talking about here is that as we're encouraging you to arrange your life in balance to go after a life's mission, your life mission is going to take the most of your strain. It's going to take the most of your capability. If you're doing it right, it's in that space. It's not the gimme putt of cutting little sandwiches for kids in Sunday school or donning an orange vest to do a parking lot ministry every Sunday. It's the strain of, this is my skill. This has got what God made me for. I'm leading in this area. And to do that, I want to have the happy, high achieving, content, flow, joy filled while straining focus that we're after. Rob, you and I, we are fans of Dan Sullivan and some of his products and books and work. And one of the things that we enjoy that we talk about or remind our people that we coach, people that we consult with, people that we get to spend life with, even our families, is we talk about gap and gain mindset. And that's a fantastic book to read. In fact, we'll have that in the show notes today, a link to the book, The Gap and the Gain. But when you think about that model, here's the quick way to remember it. All of us use an ideal in our life to create motivation. From where I'm at to where I want to be, that's an ideal state. And so that's a great motivation. But between me and my ideal are a set of goals. And the question always is, where am I measuring? Am I measuring between where I'm at in my goal and my ideal? Or am I measuring between where I'm at today and my goal? Why is that so different? The way Sullivan explains it between gap and gain mindset is that if we're in the gap, we're always thinking about what hasn't happened yet, what we haven't done, how far away the ideal is, no matter how much achievement may be done every day, incremental goals achieved, tasks completed, projects moving forward. We're always in a mindset, but we've got so far to go. Someday we'll get there. And the way one of our friends explained it to us, our friend Chad Johnson, he said, the way that you think about this is that if you were to imagine you got in a boat in the ocean and you started rowing towards the sun with a mindset of someday I'm going to reach the sun and it's always running off the edge to the west while I continue to stroke, pull, and row my boat. And I'm feeling I am never going to get there. But a gain mindset that would measure where I'm at and what's been achieved would look back to the shore and said, look how far we've come, look how far we've come, look how far we've come. Rob, that's an important mindset for the leader, for the one who's leveraging success that, pardon me, is going after achievement, but keeping in a flow state, keeping in contentment. How does that work? Did I describe that in a way that you like to describe it? Because you may be able to take that to the next level with the way you think about it.
No, it's perfect. It's said in terms of the concept that we learned from Chad. And then I would say, practically speaking, for our listeners, the reason why when you're rowing toward the sun and you're looking at the sun, the reason why that's deflating is because as we achieve and as we try to get to the flow state of who we are, there's a certain level of discomfort involved. Just like the gym, when you're trying to grow in the gym, There's discomfort is a part of the process. If you don't experience discomfort, then you're maybe not growing the right way. So the reason looking at the gain and where you've been is so important is it feeds the okay of that discomfort. It says, I'm actually doing something. I see something in the wake of that rowboat. I see where that island that's fading. And it says to me that, yes, you are going somewhere. It is good. And this discomfort is good. The way I look at it is when I'm on the treadmill, and I like doing the treadmill because I'm doing these things called Yarusos or Yasos in training for a marathon. And what I love about them is that I'm going to be on that treadmill for a long time. So it sounds pretty painful. So when I get on it and I'm going to do 5 or 6 miles, I'm thinking to myself, oh crap, this is a lot of treadmilling. I don't know if I want to do this. But as soon as I start looking back and say, oh, just clicked off a mile, I just clicked off a mile and a half, I just clicked off 2 miles, and I keep my focus on where I've been, it helps with the pain. It helps to endure the pain and the discomfort of not wanting to be on the treadmill, because staying on the treadmill, in this case, not the treadmill of life, but staying in the pain is going to give me the endurance for the time when I'm actually in the marathon and have experienced more flow in that experience than pain because I did not prepare.
Mhm. That's so good. Rob, we are going to find some time together to go into pain and the gym, the spiritual gym that
Let's
you like
go.
to talk about. That's a whole episode to unpack. So count on that in the future. That's going to be something that we're going to go into. Now, most of you understand very well at some level what Rob's explaining is that you understand the strain and some of the joy that comes from your achievement. It had a difficult moment and it had some uncertainty and it had some maybe even physical or mental pain at some level for you while you're straining forward. And then you burst through, you achieve. But it's the process with which we're able to hang on and do incredible things is that we have a gain mindset. So, what Heather and I started doing together, in fact, I've got it on my list to make sure it happens every day, is at the end of the day, we say, hey, what were your wins today? And we will lay there in bed at night saying this and this. And it doesn't matter how small it was, we are talking through all the incremental things that we're grateful for, that we got through, that we saw happen. And that ranges from the professional to the family to the kingdom. And as we're talking through all those things, we're realizing today wasn't a waste. Today was productive. How many times do we come home from a day at work and think to ourselves, I'm not sure what I got done that day? But if you'll spend the time to think about it, it creates a huge heart for that was worth it. That was worth it. And then you're realizing momentum. And in the moment when the heat is on, the crucible of an achievement, and like I was saying before, with the strain that happens and the life's calling that God's got you on, you can expect that crucible to put fire on situations with which you're running into the gain of look what God did. Look what's happening around us. Look what we were able to finish today. And by that, now be stacking up on a heart that's full of joy, has no anxiety, no fear, and is flowing while we're moving forward in spite of our circumstances.
So good. I love that. And then by reflecting, like you're saying, Jeff, is you might actually see something where it was a waste, where
Mm.
the focus wasn't connected to your destiny, where it was a distraction from the flow. And then that is also really good information. So I love that reflection is what positive thing happened, and then how am I going to leverage that thing? And then what thing just did not keep me on my path, or it was distraction from my path, distraction from my flow state that I'm going to eliminate in the future.
Rob, what you and I get to do with organizational health consulting is that we're always reminding the leaders that you're creating the oxygen for everyone to breathe. So, whether it's professional or in our family, but I'm going to speak about family as a parent or as a husband or wife, you can infuse gap and gain language into your everyday to say, hey, that's a gain. That was a gain. Or, hey, right now I'm in the gap. Help me. I want to be in the gain. I don't want to be measuring against my ideal. I want to be measuring against all that's happening that we're advancing with. And the more that we talk about that with our wives or husbands, we talk about that with our children, it creates a gratefulness, a contentment, a always looking for and high-fiving on, look, achievement, look, it's happening, it's going in the right direction. This can infuse a culture within me, within our family, and it'd be great bringing it into my professional life as well, because now we're able to remember, look, this has not been a big waiting game. In fact, we are making incremental advancement every single day.
So good. Yeah, because you need to again see to be encouraged and to stay through the discomfort and stay on course, that look back and see where you've come. So I love that we're talking about this, Jeff. I think it's a huge leverage for all of our listeners.
It is. Keep at it in your mindset of achievement. Keep at thinking about all that you've gained from every day. And as you do that, continuing to make sure that you're staying out of anxiety and moving into a place with which your achievement is not just in your career, but it's also going to be required of you inside of your family, inside of your resources, inside of your kingdom calling and life mission, and to create achievement that will use the strain to bring you to growth, because pain creates growth. Pain isn't a signal of problem. Most of the time, I think pain is a signal of advancement. So how
Come
can we be
on.
framing that? And I don't want to jump into that conversation already, Rob. There's so much that we'll unpack when we get into that episode. You can look forward to that. Thank you so much for joining us on another episode of Leveraging Success. We're so glad that we get to do this with you and talk to you. We love sharing these things. And every time that we're sharing, we're encouraging ourselves, thinking about what we need to do and what we want to be able to do. And you're hopefully benefiting from this and enjoying some of these things. In fact, we would love to hear from you. What you can do is follow and subscribe to this podcast. If you're watching on YouTube, you can click the bell and see every time a new video is released. If you're following us through one of the podcast platforms, Spotify, Apple, etc., subscribe there, leave a comment there, put a rating in there. We would love that feedback. On top of that, you can also reach directly out to us. You can email me at host@leveragingsuccesspodcast.com to tell us what you're thinking about the show, what you like, what you'd like to hear more of. If you want to hear a question addressed or you'd love to ask us some questions, we'll take those live onto this show and talk about them. Finally, I have a free offer for all of our listeners. If you're listening, this is an opportunity for you. It's in the show notes. You're going to find a link to a 7-part e-course that I've put together called Life Mastery. You'll be getting an email every day for a 7-day period with ideas on how to master life. And if you'd like to look and go even further, you can watch our 30-minute webinar, which will explain to you what an incredibly impactful life looks like. And at the end of that, you'll have an opportunity to book some time with me. Hey, we're so glad that you've been here, working less and making more, and taking that gain to be incredible and having an impactful life that will matter for eternity. I'm your host, Jeff Gearhart, here with Rob Dayton. Until next time, God bless you.